Hey, busy mom, want to find a way to drink that coffee hot and keep your kids occupied for more than just a few minutes? Enter the sensory bin. Let's learn how to make one, the key components, how to make it simple, and keep it fun for your kids. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kim Cree. I own Creative Reading Adventures, where I'm helping busy moms just like you foster a love of reading in their homes. You're going to want to start with a container of any kind. It doesn't have to be anything special. I like Dollar Tree bins all the time. Sometimes I have a flat tray. This one is more of a square. And as you can tell, I've used chickpeas, or maybe you can't tell, as my base. So you're going to want to have a lot of one thing. Maybe it's pasta, maybe it's Play-Doh, some type of base for your sensory bins. Chickpeas are easy, they're cheap. You can dump them all in, you can save them for next time. And then I just kind of added different ingredients that I knew my littles would enjoy. All right, so when you're making your sensory bin, you're gonna want a base. In this case, I started with chickpeas. You can dye chickpeas different colors with food coloring. I just dumped a couple bags in here. You're gonna want a container. I'm using this clear square container just because it gives you a little bit more room to dig here. And then everything else in this bin, like this fake snow, there were these little rocks in here that were supposed to be for like a vase filler. This was from the holiday Dollar Tree. Ribbon I had, extra ribbon I threw in here. I think this might be Sven. Sven's making a trip into our sensory bin. We have snowflakes, just really anything. Wooden snowflakes, they can paint the snowflakes, you can dump them in. There's really no rules to a sensory bin. I would always try to have like some type of cup and a scoop. It can be anything you want so that the way they're clean. It's a little bit messy. I highly recommend putting down a tablecloth. If it is a nice day outside, throw it outside, or just have like a kids area that you know you're going to be vacuuming, because honestly, these little snowflakes do get everywhere, I'm not gonna lie. One question I'm always asked about sensory bins is, how old do you have to be? My 2-year-old plays with sensory bins. I am right there with him. It is not a very relaxing experience for me because obviously he can shove a chickpea up his nose, has done so in the past. So I'm right there to make sure nothing's going in his mouth. It is getting a little bit better because he knows now that some things obviously are not edible. So it's up to you. It's use your best judgment. My 5-year-old has been playing, honestly, probably since she was 2, pretty independently with sensory bins. So you know your children, and you're gonna have to make that best call for you. However, the big key to my sensory bins is I'm always throwing letters into them. The number one trick that I teach parents and busy moms is to start with the letters in your child's name. Everyone's like, but don't they need to know vowels first? Or shouldn't we start with the right letters? No. They're gonna have to recognize their name on their coat hook. They're gonna have to recognize their name when they come into preschool. Sometimes if they're in the younger classes, they start with a picture, but for the most part, your child is gonna have to recognize the letters in their name first. So let's start playing with those letters, right? My 5-year-old knows all the letters in her name. It's Charlotte. She understands that it's a super long name, but at the beginning when she was just learning letters, we started with just the C. Her name starts with C. Then we added Char, so there's only 4 letters for her to find and recognize. And now she's an old pro at both capital and lowercase letters of her name, and honestly the whole alphabet. So we'll go into more detail in later videos about when to introduce the next type of letters, but please, please, please start with your child's name. With the letters that are going in the sensory bin, it can be anything. You can write them on blocks if you have extra blocks. There's sometimes always at the dollar store that I write, uppercase on one side, lowercase on the other, to get in all of that different practice. You can get magnet letters, you can get the foam letters, you can get the puzzle pieces with the letters on it, whatever works for you and whatever honestly you have laying around. I think the little tiny bead letters that I introduced and kind of go on a hunt for, those are very hard if you're just learning letters. So, my 2-year-old isn't hunting for those little bracelet beads, but for the most part, any letters are fine. Whatever you can find in those Target dollar bins or at the dollar store will work great. My daughter is 5. We talk a lot about uppercase and lowercase letters. I have a lot of opinions about this topic, but for now, just dump them in. While they're playing, you can be like, oh, H, what sound does that make? You can just talk about it. You can throw in an uppercase and a lowercase h. We can throw Sven back in there. Some times you can use these foam stickers. Again, my daughter knows what a T looks like, a capital T and a lowercase t. So we do talk about how this one looks a little bit funny in the different fonts that you see, because they are going to run into different fonts and not everything is going to be in perfect print. So you decide what's best. And then I also have these little beads, which are super tricky and I don't recommend if your child's just learning the letters, but sometimes I kind of hide them in there and we go on a letter hunt. Or I'll say, hey, let's find the sound, the letter that makes the sound t, t, t. And then they have to go on a letter hunt, they're digging. Maybe I have a teacup for the letter T. An easy way to connect reading to this activity is to read a winter book before you even introduce the sensory bin. So maybe for the day you want to read The Snowy Day, or you want to read, the polar bear book. Whatever works for you. You can add in little polar bears and penguins into your sensory bin. There's really no rules, except you're going to want to start with that base, kind of keep it contained for the mess for you, and make it an easy cleanup. Honestly, a lot of times I'll just take the letters out so we can reuse them, and then any animals and figurines, and then dump everything else into a Ziploc baggie so we can use it maybe later on in the week or save it for next year. Like, I don't generally deconstruct the entire sensory bin. I just kind of save it and add to it as we go through the winter. How are you going to make your next sensory bin for your preschooler? Happy playing and reading.